All right, welcome back to the very first episode in 2025 of the Niche Pursuits News podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and we've got a couple of fun and interesting topics to discuss today. So first off, out of the gate, Google's CEO is warning employees that OpenAI might be the Google of AI, if you will. Beyond OpenAI, Google seems to be making use of a different LLM to improve Gemini. So we've got those two stories to dive into right out of the gate. Then we'll round things out with a look back on 2024 and the various algorithm updates that it brought. I'll give you a little sneak peek, a couple less than the year prior, actually. With last year in the books, we'll also get an update on our side hustles. And of course, don't worry, the popular Weird Niche segment will have our first two weird niches of 2025. So that one is here to stay, as Spencer and I were joking about last week. Joining me today, though, is Brooks Conkle. Brooks, welcome.
Jared, happy New Year, man! 2025.
Happy New Year! You get the honor of being in the co-host seat here for our first one of the new year. This is our third year running the news podcast. Started in 2023. We did a full year in 2024. We're here for 2025. I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. I'm ready, man. I'm ready. Let's rock.
All right, let's get into our first story today. Like I kind of teased at the outset, Google's CEO is, I would say, maybe taking a different tone, if you will, to how he is approaching ChatGPT and or OpenAI in general. I got the story up here, and so I'll kind of read through some of the high level points. There's a lot to get through, so I'm going to try to pick and choose which sound bites we'll look at. But the headline is Google's CEO warns that ChatGPT may become synonymous to AI the way Google is to search. And as a result, Google will focus hard on scaling Gemini as a consumer app in 2025. And this is a report from CNBC. And so basically, this is an executive team meeting where Sundar Pichai had a strategic meeting with employees last week. This article was written on December 29th, so probably sometime during the holiday period. And basically, it was all about the 2025 outlook and what Google needs to focus on to reach its goals. Here are some quotes. Again, I don't know where this exact quote is being pulled from, probably maybe from someone inside of Google, but quote, scaling Gemini is on the consumer side will be our biggest focus next year. And the issue is that ChatGPT from OpenAI is quickly becoming the brand for AI like Google is for search. In that CNBC article, it said this. Somebody questioned following that, saying, what's our plan to combat this in the upcoming year? Or are we not focusing as much on consumer-facing LLM? Which is weird because it sounds like he had just said that on the consumer side, Gemini was going to be the biggest focus. And Pichai went on to say Google wants to be the kind of the Google of AI, if you will, not OpenAI. And so it kind of led to some questions about whether it's going to be baked into Google search, if there's going to be some new AI model. One or two more quotes, and then Brooks, we can talk about it some more. Pichai showed a chart of large language models with Gemini 1.5 leading OpenAI's GPT and other competitors. But that lead might not stay, and they might have to play catch up. And he went on to suggest, I expect some back and forth in 2025. I think will be state of the art. In history, you don't always need to be first, but you have to execute well and really be the best in class as a product. I think that's what 2025 will be all about. The final thing I'll just mention that he said, which I actually really like a lot, and we've been talking on and off this podcast about how we kind of agree with this. Pichai also stresses the company needs to go back to its early roots and build and ship faster while also being more scrappy. Throughout the meeting, he kept reminding employees of the need to stay scrappy.
Do you ever get stuck in your business and wish you had someone you could turn to for solutions? Well, I think you should consider joining the Niche Pursuits community. You'll get weekly calls with experts on growing a successful online business, and you'll also get assigned a small mastermind group where you can solve your business problems as well as share your wins. For a limited time, I'll let you try out the Niche Pursuits community for just $1. Go ahead and use coupon code PODCAST at checkout in order to get your first month for just $1. Again, that's coupon code PODCAST. Go to community.nichepursuits.com today and see what it's all about. And maybe I'll see you on our call next week. Thanks a lot.
Okay, a lot there. Brooks, coming in hot here to 2025, what were your thoughts here on this kind of, circle the wagon kind of meeting?
The boxing match is on, man. It's like, yeah, like OpenAI, ChatGPT. The product came out, biggest, fastest growing consumer product basically ever, and then Google caught off guard on the ropes, and now Google's shipping fast. Like, it's kind of interesting what they've just recently launched and come out with. But I do think he's right about like Chat GPT being the name,
Yeah.
the household name. And all the cool kids call it chat. Like I found myself saying chat as well, just because like Chat GPT, it's like so many syllables. So it's a good move that OpenAI also owns Chat.com now. Chat.com goes straight to the product. Yeah, so chat. Maybe it's just chat. Maybe that's the brand. And but yeah, they are going to have to fight against that. I think like Google is going to have to fight against that name brand, if you will.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because, the CEO of Google is basically saying like, this is our biggest competitor when it comes to what we're doing in the LLM AI space. And yet what you do with ChatGPT is, frankly speaking, like a lot different than what you do with Google. Like with Google, you kind of type a prompt, but you get a bunch of different results that you pick from. And with ChatGPT, it's a tailored experience where you're given an answer to your query based on a bunch of different things. And so it's almost like they're fighting, but are they fighting the same battle, or are people just going to pick, maybe not necessarily based on who's better, but just which layout they like the best,
That's a really good question. I mean, I think it. Let's see what happens in 2025, like with what Google does and how they integrate it or whatever. Because like ChatGPT, we use as a standalone product, but then they started their search product,
Right.
right? So it's like search engine. Well, Google has only been a search engine, and now it's integrating AI. So it'd be curious to see like if the user interface changes in some sense. Like, do they roll it into the same product, or is it just the separate Gemini or whatever? Yeah, are we gonna say Gemini?
Correct.
Consumers out in the wild, I guess, is part of what he's asking. Like, are people gonna say that, or are they gonna be just saying ChatGPT?
And you're
It
right, because ChatGPT has search, which is kind of like the Google equivalent of what they have, and then Google has Gemini, which is kind of like the ChatGPT equivalent. So their flagships are different, but they're both leading the pack in AI. And now the CEO is admitting like they might have beaten us to the initial kind of name
mhm.
recognition. What do you think about the second part of his comment, which is related but kind of unrelated? It's this idea of being scrappy. Spencer's talked many times on this news podcast before about like, hey, is Google so big that they're not going to be able to turn the ship around fast enough? Once you get really big, it's hard to stay scrappy. It's hard to pivot. It's hard to adapt. It's hard to change quickly. And now you have the CEO kind of basically admitting that.
Yeah, I like hearing him say we've got to be scrappy in order to win. I guess like win the race or be a like serious competitor. And I think he's right. Like, they are going to have to be scrappy, because there's tons of cool companies that didn't exist 2 years ago that are cool now, and are people are using. Obviously Chat GPT being one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I just, to kind of wrap this one up, we got a second story about Google and AI that we'll then move to. But on this topic, it feels a little bit like a change of tone from Pichai. It feels like, and again, we don't typically get access to a lot of his internal meetings. They're typically these presentations that he gives, but it just always feels like we are the best. We're so confident. We lead the race, and they always have a bunch of data that shows they're in the lead. And all of these kind of State of the Unions seem to be like, we know where we're going, we know what we're doing, and we're going to beat everyone there. And this almost feels like a slightly different tone, which is, hey, we got work to do. We got to roll up our sleeves. I know he said that before, about how they got beat to the release on the chat side of things, but still, it feels like a bit of a different tone from him, and kind of going into 2025.
He's ready, man.
Yeah,
He's ready to fight. He's ready to
yeah.
fight. It's kind of what I feel like. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting year. I mean, is the way I see it as a on the consumer side of things. It's gonna be interesting to see what companies offer and how they kind of battle it out
It's
for
well
for
timed.
our
On the
for
last
our
couple
business.
it's well timed. On the last couple podcast episodes, we kept saying like it looks like we're going to get a 2-horse race out of 2025 and beyond. Looks like he might agree.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, well, hey, this is a really interesting storyline, and I'm going to pull it up here on screen. I actually had to write a bit of an overview on this one that I'm going to read just because there's kind of so much going on here. This is a story out of TechCrunch, and I thought it was really, really interesting. So, this story from TechCrunch is about Google and Google's Gemini product. So, we just talked about that. Basically, Google is leveraging, it would appear from this story, Google is leveraging Anthropic's Claude AI model to evaluate and improve its Gemini AI model. So contractors who are working on it and that are tasked with rating Gemini's performance, what they do apparently is it compares outputs against those of Claude based on a bunch of criteria like truthfulness, verbosity, how verbose the answer is. And I guess they're allowed to spend up to 30 minutes per prompt. And then some contractors have observed that Claude is basically being referenced inside of Google's Gemini model in terms of how it's being used to rate and evaluate it. They've observed that Claude emphasizes safety more rigorously than Gemini. And we know Gemini's been in the news and gotten criticism for some, I guess, inappropriate responses would be the best way to put it. But this internal correspondence, it revealed that Google might be using Claude in ways that would help train its model. And that is against Claude's terms of service, if you will. And so Google's denied this, I believe. It kind of gets into the nuances of how training is done, how feedback is done. But it's interesting that, and again, TechCrunch, I believe somewhere in here it said like they have verified some of this. Yeah, at least one of the outputs presented to Gemini contractors seen by TechCrunch explicitly stated, "I am Claude, created by Anthropic." So it's interesting, as we talked about the last story and Google saying like, we're kind of behind in this part, but we're going to get scrappy and we're going to go there. Now we got this story that they're basically like, well, in order to improve our AI, we got to use something better, Claude. I don't know. I might be reading a little bit too much into it, but it's interesting. These things are dovetailing each other.
I almost see this as being scrappy. It's kind of how I see it. I'm like, hey, what's more scrappy than taking your competitor's product and like using it and being like, hey, how good is it? How can we improve ours based on what it sounds like they're not like, using. It's not like they've stolen any code or anything like that. It sounds like they've actually hired people to like just literally use the product and then compare the output and then really see, hey, where are they better? Which is like, I don't know if you have to ask a competitor if you can do that, right? Like if you're any business, like if you're a car wash, can't you just go to your competitor's car wash and be like, oh wow, well I like how they do this, or they offer these cool lights in their suds. Yeah, we should do that too. I mean, like to me, that's the ultimate scrappiness. There's also one more funny thing in there that I didn't know this, but Google apparently is a big investor of Claude, like one of the major investors, and so I also imagine Google being like, "Hey, man, we can do what we want. Like, we're like a major investor of your company." So, anyways,
I'm glad you brought it up. I was thinking the same thing. Like, where's the line? Like, from just using it, and these are contractors, so they're just kind of people who have been hired to do a job. Like, spend up to 30 minutes. Tell us if this is the best answer available, and they're like, "Cool." Or is there more going on that maybe I'm not satiated enough to know, like I know, is it like, how far can you go using a competitor's service to help the other service versus where it's against the terms of service? I don't know those answers.
No idea.
I know, I don't either. It's interesting to hear. It's interesting to hear you talk about how they're an investor. It feels almost like the Reddit thing, right? Like Google is an investor now of sorts in Reddit due to their commercial deal they have, and now all of a sudden Reddit is doing really well in search, and there's an interesting connection there. But it's good on one side that it feels like the quality rater guidelines, and how they hired quality raters for search kind of feels like the same thing of what they're doing for their Gemini product.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would. That's kind of the avenue I would put it in. So that's exactly what it seems like, and it seems like cool. Let's compare our product and let's just see how we're doing against the competition.
You feel like they would have to have checked it to make sure, like, hey, what we're doing is is good within the terms of service, and maybe this is just a story without a whole lot of bite to it. But at the same time, I don't know. With the antitrust lawsuit, you can't put anything past these tech companies these days.
Yeah, well, if it's against terms of service and this is a big deal, then I guess we'll hear more about it on a
you
future.
Better believe.
On a future
I was going to
episode.
say,
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure we'll hear more about it. I think it's interesting just to close on it that it does acknowledge in the article, training aside and that whole complicated mess, it does acknowledge that basically like these people that were interviewed feel like Claude is a safe, it does have higher safety standards and parameters than Gemini, which is
Yep.
also interesting because that kind of correlates a bit to some of the snafus in the Gemini releases and some of the PR nightmares that have happened and surfaced for them. I can't think of one that Claude has gotten themselves into yet.
No, they're Anthropic, Claude. They are safety is a huge. It's like one of their biggest, like part of their mission statement kind of thing. Safe AI. So I can totally see that being, safer, quote unquote, safer than Google's Gemini. So
we'll see where it goes. I mean,
Yep.
interesting that Gemini was kind of in the first the two big stories of the 2025 for us. Okay, let's move on. We got to talk and touch on algorithm updates. This wouldn't be a Niche Pursuits podcast if something didn't come up there. Really quick note. I know that we had left you guys a couple weeks ago in the last kind of standard news update, our standard news podcast, that is, where the spam update had just rolled out, right? So we had November core update. That one took a while. Then we had a December core update. That one did not take a while. And then we had a spam update. That one launched on, got it up here on screen, December 19th and finished on December 26th. And so the reason we didn't update you on that last week was because Spencer and I did a pre-recorded year in review sort of episode last week. So the spam update is done. This was a pretty volatile one from what a lot of people talked about. Again, Barry Schwartz reporting here saying, while the update was announced the day after the December core update, it does seem that it hit very hard within a few days and was much more widespread than some previous spam updates. So it's always tough to evaluate these sorts of updates when they're being done right in the middle of the holidays. You've got the holidays, you've got the kind of holiday sales rush, plus the holidays that were happening around that. So very hard. Dust's going to have to probably settle a bit, but early reports are, hey, it had some pretty big impact. And that kind of transitions us nicely into this final story that we're going to quickly go through here. And that's just kind of a year in review of Google updates. Brooks, I don't know if you know, but there were 4 core updates. There were 3 spam updates for a total. You can do math, I'm sure. I'm over dramatizing this. 7 confirmed algorithm updates.
Give me a drum roll.
Yeah. Exactly. Get those drums out. If you're wondering, 7 in 2024, there were 9 in 2023. And I'm pretty sure everyone listening will feel this way. If you do feel this way, it's confirmed March's core update was the biggest update. And apparently in this article that Barry wrote, the biggest update ever. So that's interesting. I felt like it was the biggest update, certainly of the year, but this is saying the biggest update ever. A little bit more, then I'll turn over to you for a few thoughts. 2023, I said 9 confirmed updates. 2022 and 2021, there were 10 updates. So we actually had the fewest updates in the last 4 years. That's interesting. It doesn't feel like we're getting less updates, but the data would suggest that that's the case. Really cool visual here that that Search Engine Land put together of the different updates and how long they last. If you remember back to that March core update, it took a really long time, started March 5th, finished April 19th. They also launched a spam update on the same day. That wrapped 2 weeks later. Remember, they also announced all their new site reputation abuse stuff that was to come in May. Didn't come in May, but we started to see the effects of that happening in terms of manual actions, but not algorithmic actions yet. That second spam update was in June. You had a core update in August. That was the one, Brooks, I remember you and I on the podcast, you're talking about finally some HCU sites getting a little bit of recovery. Not full recovery, but we did finally start to see some. It talks here in this article about how that was the first update where Google publicly said we're trying to go after sites that were hit and help them. And then we had this triple header here towards the end of the year, November 11 core update, December 12 core update, December 19 spam update. All right, I'm going to catch my breath. Turn over to you. Thoughts on 2024 and Google's updates?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's funny. When I read the title, I was like, oh, wow, 7. I was like, man, that's a lot. And then the subtitle is, 2 less than last year. And then and then just after that, 10 before that. And I'm like, oh, I also didn't realize it was that many on an annual basis. But admittedly, I think I've told you this before too. I personally don't pay as much
You have.
individual attention to them anymore, especially since, like, I guess starting like a year and a half or whatever, since there are just so many. I'm like, they all roll into each other. They're all, I don't know. Um, I don't know if that's smart of me to do that, and I don't know if other people do that, but that is what I do. I just kind of take it for what it is and don't try to, like, draw a particular conclusion. So, it's a lot. It's a lot of updates, but there's going to probably continue to be a lot of updates, I guess I would say.
It's interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people with what they didn't talk about is how extreme the updates were. And I don't know. I don't have
Uh-huh.
that data in front of me, right? Like if you have 4 updates, or if you have, 4 updates throughout one year and 2 updates throughout the other year, but the 2 updates are significantly more volatile, it can have the same
Right.
impact, right? And so
Right.
that's what we don't know. What we do know, they said, is that March's core update was the biggest ever. I don't know how they're evaluating that, but if there's only 7 updates compared to 9 last year, but one of them is the biggest one ever, maybe that's kind of why we feel like the updates were fast and furious this year. But there were
Right.
some
Right.
gaps. I mean, waiting until March to have an update, that was a couple months, and then we went another 6 months until we had a core up. 5 months until we had a core update in August. So there were some gaps there where I know people were waiting around a lot. I think suffice to say, if we look back on 2024, at least for how we experience Google here in this community, certainly going into 2024, there's a lot more hope that Google would have figured out what they got wrong with the HCU and made some corrections. And while those corrections did come in August, we wanted them to come in the March core update, and they didn't. And then when they did come in August, they were too small and too few. So I think a lot of people are going to look back on 2024 and say Google got a lot worse, and Google didn't fix a lot of the stuff that they messed up in previous years. And maybe that gives us hope for 2025. Google is what we've been talking about so far, and the need for them to get scrappy and improve. I don't know. Maybe that's a reflection of how they feel about 2024, just kind of like how we feel about it.
Yeah, totally, totally. I was just thinking while you were going through that, it would be really interesting to see the aggregate overall data of what actually transpires with, like, almost like the internet, like all websites, traffic to those sites versus like AI. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because there's noise. There's always noise. Like whatever group that we're in, forum or whoever we're talking to, the people yelling out is typically, the people that lose traffic. The people that are traffic is going up usually are not talking, like they're not as loud. And
Yeah.
so I I'm interested as 2025 goes on to see that the overall, like, internet data, kind of not just in certain groups or arenas or certain types of sites, but like almost the internet as a whole. So we'll see as we go forward.
It's hard, right? Because I mean,
Yeah, it's a big place. The internet's a big place.
and
So
there's so many things going on at once, and it's just so
mhm.
hard to compute as site owners, as websites, as businesses, like it's never one thing, and I mean,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
much of perhaps people not clicking as much is because they're now in a generative chat kind of environment, right? With AI and stuff. I mean,
yep,
it's 2024 was a big year of change, like no doubt. And
yep,
it's just going to be super interesting to see where we go in 2025.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't I don't think the change is going to slow down. I guess. Yeah, I don't know if it'll continue to be disruptive, but the change is not going to slow. It's going to continue. The pace is the acceleration of change is continuing in the same speed, or if not faster this year, probably. I would
totally.
say.
I mean, yeah, we could go on about this, but I
Yeah.
mean, if going back to the start of the podcast, if we've got ourselves a 2-horse race now, if we've got Google and OpenAI, we've got others, but if we've got those
Yeah.
two with incredibly deep pockets, incredible motivation to innovate, we've got Google getting scrappy, we've got OpenAI releasing products, releasing new models, releasing extensions of what they're doing, owning the chat environment. Like you would think there would be more frequent, more rapid development, and thus more change. So, hey,
Yeah.
we don't have a crystal ball. We're not fortune tellers, but it stands to reason. It stands to reason that 2025, and it's kind of why it's good we're talking about that now. So,
Yeah.
well, we can put the theorizing aside and get into some more brass tack stuff. We got to talk side hustles here. 2024 is in the books. I mean, I kind of felt like I had a blank slate this week on what to talk about. There's so many things about, technically I could just talk about the last week or two of side hustle stuff, but I could also talk about the whole year. It's very weird. So I tried to do a little bit of both. I get to host every week, so I can kind of talk about different topics each week and kind of ping pong back and forth. I'm going to talk about Amazon Influencer this week. So, Amazon Influencer, let's talk December really quickly. Let me get my notes up here. So December is done. We're recording this on the second day of January. And it came in at just over $5,400.
Woo!
And so 5,400 was the final amount. Now, I had hopes of a little higher the first couple days of December, but as I believe it was Thomas was quick to point out, he's like, don't forget Black Friday happened much later this year. And so your early December, probably feeling a little bit more like a Black Friday time period than normal. He was right. So it did drop off quite a bit. We know that's the case. As you get closer and closer to Christmas and those subsequent related holidays, like it just slows down a bit. I actually had a negative $91 day the day after Christmas.
Oh, bummer.
Somebody returned a $2,500 product.
And nobody was buying a thing.
And
either.
Nobody was buying anything to help,
exactly.
kind of compensate.
Exactly.
It was just bad luck, but the chart didn't even know how to show that to me. Like, I was like,
how do I go down? Yeah.
I couldn't even see. I was like, wait, it says negative 91, but there's like nothing on the chart. It was very confusing. But so anyways, it doesn't take many of those to really put a damper on things, but that's kind of the nature of like, people aren't shipping much on Christmas stuff. But anyways, so if you look back, November of this year was somewhere around $5,250. So December, just a little over that. So we almost hit 11,000 for the November and December. If you're wondering what that looks like compared to last year, this November, 5,250-ish. Last November, 4,000-ish. So that's up 25%. This December, 5,400-ish. Last December, 4,200-ish. So up 25%. It's kind of up 25% across the board. Now, that's December. Let's talk about 2024. I went in and I downloaded, and I don't know if you can do this. I went in and I downloaded all of my data from January 1st to December 31st for 2024. All into a spreadsheet. And so I was able to do a little bit of crunching. I wanted to nerd out so bad and spend all this time on it, but I gave myself like 10 minutes. Here's some of the stuff that came out of that. So in 2024, I made over $40,000 in the influencer program. And so, yeah, I know, side hustle. I'll take awesome, that. Man. That's a great side hustle. I sold 34,000 items this year through the influencer program.
That's crazy.
That came out to a total of $1.4 million in revenue for Amazon.
Crazy.
So it's almost like last week, Spencer was talking about how much he made from the Facebook bonus program. And then he shared that like some months, 9 million people were seeing his posts. And he's like, man, I'm not making that much when you think about 9 million people seeing my posts. So I made a bunch in 2024, but when you see how much I made Amazon, I'm like, dang it, man. I don't know. I sure made them a lot of money.
When you think about the products, is that like, to me, that's almost more mind blowing than the income, because I kind of look at mine too, like whatever, the little chart last 7 days. But when you look at the items shipped and like the revenue done, that's so interesting. Like it really makes it real that you're like, oh, I am like driving real business to this company, and it's a lot, and like they're shipping a lot of products and doing a lot of revenue. That's cool, man. That's really cool that you pulled up that data from last year.
That's exactly right, because I just think about it in terms of like, I got this many videos, I'm making this much. You don't think about the scale of it all. Yeah, I'm just one influencer out of thousands, probably tens of thousands of influencers. Anyways, a couple more data points. One, I think it's super fascinating. I'll close on that one. So 34,000 items sold or so. That's an approximation, by the way. All these numbers are approximations. Around 3,000 of those 34,000 items were returned. So just under 10% return rate. I don't know if that's good or not. I feel like staying out of double digits is good, but I don't know. Just thought I'd share. So like 9% return rate in the end.
Yeah.
This is interesting. So I watch my wife use Amazon, right? And she's like the Amazon user in the house, the person who orders. She's always doing it on her phone while she's like bouncing around, doing a bunch of stuff, right? And I see my dad do that. And obviously people who watch influencer videos and they make purchases might have different buying habits than people who don't. But anyways, 72% of my 34,000 products sold were purchased on desktop.
Interesting. Yeah.
I would have thought that'd
Yeah,
be
that's
completely flipped, like 72% on mobile, right? No, 72% were purchased on desktop.
that's super interesting data. I actually use Amazon from from a desktop as well.
Yep.
Everything I do, I order. My wife the same. Like everything through her phone. Like she orders, buys everything. I would be a desktop purchaser like through you. I also wonder if the horizontal videos
Yeah.
have anything to do with that, like where Amazon
And
is serving those videos.
and
Do you think?
I make almost all horizontal videos, and we know that on a
Yeah,
phone, like
yeah.
vertical videos look best, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm asking is I wonder if Amazon is serving like different videos to different people. Like so um you know what I'm saying? Like are they putting your videos
To
on people
desktop people.
that are on a desktop device,
Yeah.
right? And on mobile devices are they getting different videos?
Well,
Or or is that the stat that like 7 out of 10 people are ordering on their desktop?
no, it'd be
And
fascinating to talk to someone who makes mostly vertical videos
uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
see if their 72% or whatever their number is flip-flopped, right? And to your
Exactly.
point, if
Yeah.
Amazon is going like, well, every time you have a vertical video, we tend to show that on mobile purchasers, and every time you have a horizontal video, we tend to show that on desktop purchasers. Or it could just be indicative of who buys products after watching influencer videos. Because like an
Yeah.
influencer video on my phone is like you have to turn the screen and do all this work, versus on your desktop, it's the right aspect ratio and everything. So
Exactly, exactly. Let me ask you this. Did you ever think when you started making your first Amazon videos that you would make this much revenue? Because this is literally a salary, right? For like for some people in the US, like that is their annual salary. Like, did you think that this side hustle could be that big or would be that big? Or maybe you thought it would be bigger. I don't know. Just
I
curious.
I did think it could be this big, if I'm being honest,
Okay.
because we
Okay.
had interviewed a couple people on the podcast that
Hmm.
were making actually around this, somewhere in the 5,000 a month and change, up
Okay.
and down. And I felt strong about this one just because I have such a strong photo video
Yep.
background. I I've done tons of YouTube stuff. I do, podcasts. So I'm very comfortable talking on camera, and I have a lot of audio, video experience. So I was like, oh my
Yep.
goodness. Like, I feel like we got a couple of use cases that I've talked to in depth that are doing it. And I feel like the skill sets required to succeed, I might actually have them. So I
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of did, but we've been doing this long enough to know, like, on paper it can look great, and then you do this long enough, like that doesn't mean it's going to actually work out. So I wasn't sure it was going to work out, but I did have high hopes.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I've heard a lot of people recently talk about the saturation of influencers. And I get where they're coming from. And that's probably true because every market does have supply and demand, and there probably is maybe some saturation or whatever. But like yeah, so you never know how it's going to work out. I would be curious to hear those people that you interviewed, and now I'm remembering those interviews. I'd be curious how do you keep up with them? Are they doing the same now as they were then, like revenue wise?
One of them
That
is
would be interesting to find out.
One of them is Thomas, that we interviewed.
Oh,
He
okay,
he
okay.
shared whenever he was last on, that he hadn't. I don't think he'd done a video in 2024, and so
That's
his
all.
earnings had
I love
dropped
it.
quite a bit, but was still
Yeah,
earning,
yeah,
Spencer like money. Like, I don't remember, fifteen
exactly.
hundred, $2,000 a month. The other one was Matt Donley. I haven't talked to Matt in a
Okay,
while. I haven't talked to Matt. I'd be curious to see if
okay.
he's still actively doing videos and stuff, because he had, years on me when I interviewed him, and he was one of the two people that collectively, the two of them plus Spencer, I'm like, okay, I've got enough people that are succeeding at this. I'm going to give it a
Yeah,
shot.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I love it, and I love them not making video. I chuckled at that, not making a video in 2020. I laughed because I knew you were going to say, and still making like the passive, the passiveness of that is where it becomes truly passive.
Yeah.
Like that is actually passive income, like not doing anything during 2024, but making thousands of dollars
Not the
from
myth of passive
past work.
income, like
Yeah,
the
exactly,
actual passive
exactly.
income.
Yeah, actual passive, but actual passive income takes a lot of hard work
Yeah.
to get set up, or it's just money that's invested in making money. Like that's it. passive income in a nutshell. That's it. Done. You do a lot of hard work and set something up, and or your money's making money. But that's awesome, man. Hats off to you. I'm excited. Shoot, man. Let's see what 2025 does.
I was
Right?
gonna say, I mean, I was putting together my email. Every month I send out an email to my email list that's asked to be notified about Amazon influencers. Not everybody wants to be, which is fine, but there's a subset of people that have opted into my Amazon influencer updates. And I was putting together my email actually for the email today. And I was like, 2025, what's the plan? It literally is just do 2024 over again. Like, keep making as many videos as I can without trying too hard. And it worked. So let's just do that again.
Nice. Yeah. If it's not broke, don't fix it. If it's not stressing you out, if you can fit it in, then fit it in, and do it and see what happens, man. That's awesome. That's
I'm
exciting.
already going to try to carve out a couple hours tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. We're recording a day before this goes live, to film all the stuff we got in December, So, I'll right back to it. Right. No rest for the weary.
I need to take motivation from you, man, because, I feel like I only get off my laurels now and film something when I feel like Amazon is like, hey, could you please film some stuff like this? Which by the way, let me ask you this: does that revenue include like special deals from Amazon, like I forget what they're called, like creator offerings or something like that?
It does, yeah. It includes creator connections. They'll give you bonuses every once in a while to try different things, and so it does kind of wrap all that up into one final just number.
Very cool, very cool. That's awesome, man. Yeah, looking forward to see where it goes.
Well, next week I'm going to talk. I'm not 100% sure. I'm probably going to talk about the Pinterest project and that sort of thing. So we'll table that for next week. What do you have for us? I know, because I'm on your email list, that you've been busy since I last talked with you.
Well, I'll be brief in mine because I don't have like crazy revenue numbers like you for yours. But
you're just spending money. Actually, you're spending money.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I'm out of pocket, man. I'm investing, but I'm also not as nice as you. Like you let certain people get updates on Amazon. Everyone that gets my email they get all updates on whatever I'm working on.
I love it.
So there's no. Yeah, I'm not being nice. I'm like, well, hopefully. If you don't like it, you just scroll on past and find something that you're interested in, or whatever. So I bought another Facebook. Well, I shouldn't say another. I bought a Facebook page. It's a doggy. It's in the dog niche.
Okay.
It's gonna be in the doggy humor niche because my wife, she loves dogs. We literally have 7 dogs at the house right now. I put a picture on the thing. You saw that. We're also side shiny objects shenanigans. We're also dog sitting over the Christmas and like holiday break. We're not going to do it as much in the future, but at one time we had like as many as I think 9 dogs in our house.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. She was like, yeah, we're not going to do that many going forward. But I say that to say my wife likes dogs. And so this page, it's kind of cool. Like she's all day long looking at funny dog stuff, on Facebook. So I've already made her a page manager. Starters for insurance, note out there for anyone. If you have a Facebook page, invite, your spouse or someone, because something could happen. You could get locked out of your page. Yep. I've seen that happen to people like multiple times. So the first thing I do is actually I make sure my wife is like a page admin on any pages. But now I'm like, hey babe, share all that funny stuff to this page, please. So that's like one thing that we're doing. And when Morgan talked about cat mom humor, the same day I bought dog mom humor. I was like, okay, I'm buying dogmomhumor.com. So I own the domain name. And so what will this brand be? I don't know, but it has potential to, obviously, a Facebook bonus program, develop something out of it. It's currently, for me, it's like, it's content in my email newsletter for me to build something in front of people. It's also that. I'm also like diversifying Facebook pages, like having a few, because I've heard a lot of chatter about the bonus program, like that Facebook's slowing down their invites, and also that it may make sense to like diversify, like you don't know which ones are going to grow faster and like get invited in the program. So that's like a piece of my thinking as well. Well,
tell us some of the numbers on this.
It's all those things.
Like I wouldn't even know where to start with in buying a Facebook page. Whatever you're comfortable sharing, like how does one price out a Facebook page?
Yep, I have no idea. I'll tell you how I priced it. Yeah, I was offered the page for X dollars, and I said I don't feel comfortable with that. But what I did was I offered less than what I thought I could buy page likes
Yeah.
for the page. The page also had not really been like super active in 2024, so I discounted for that as well. That was that I'm like, hey, I mean that's risk. I did confirm that the page is like all US followers, so I thought that was super important. So it's
Yep.
people in the United States. Um, but I basically offered and paid like half of what I thought I could acquire page likes for. Is how I negotiated the price. So.
And that makes sense for a page that sounds like fairly dormant,
Hmm.
not earning any real revenue, just got
Exactly.
followers, got traction in
Yep.
Facebook, and has a group of people that all seem to like the same thing, which is dog humor.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, all I could do is scroll back and look at like, okay, cool. It's got some good interaction from the past, like when it was active, and yeah, it's kind of me taking a stab at it, saying like, cool, I can bring this back to life and then continue to grow it.
Yeah.
Um, which also is another reason to like buy it at a discount, in my opinion, because it's like you're having to, like you said, you're having to bring it back to life. It's not, yeah. There's no revenue, so I can't like, it's not like I'm buying it on a multiple of revenue or something like that.
I mean,
So.
again, it's like buying a website that's got a bunch of content. It's been aged. It's been sitting. It's indexed in Google, but it needs a lot of work to get the love back.
Exactly. And can you, I don't know, yeah, I'm not going to like list the actual page because I don't know. I don't think Meta's going to go through the trouble of that to like shut me down. I don't think you can technically sell a Facebook page. People do it all the time, all day, all long. It's you're changing money and I mean, there's some trust involved, right? Because you're, page admins having to add an admin, remove an admin. So it's like, I probably wouldn't like bet the farm on a page unless I had
Yeah.
a different way to do it. But like, yeah, I mean, you can totally just, transfer ownership of Facebook page or group or whatever. But nonetheless, I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited to grow it as a part of my, projects and stuff. So
Goal is to get this in the Facebook bonus program. It sounds like you've outsourced
yeah.
adequately to a fellow family member who's passionate about the topic.
Yeah, yeah. So she'll just share. Yeah, I will completely turn this over to one of my team members to produce content on
Yeah.
and just like let it ride. He also likes dogs. He owns a dog. And so like I'll spell out the process and the like what we're doing. Like we're growing another page on the Gulf Coast, like with some strategy and like yeah. So I'll just take that same strategy, transpose it over to doggies, and then we'll test a bunch of different stuff, and I'll just let him just rock and roll with it, and then we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Onwards. That's amazing. That's cool. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
it reminds me, I bought like
Thanks.
a small kind of similar project in the email newsletter space over that summer. It
Mm-hmm.
was the Slice, and I bought it, and it's like, well, I didn't have to pay much. I paid
Yep.
less than if I would have had to go out and get that many subscribers on my own. Like you kind of know how much these cost, and it's the same exact way to evaluate it. Wasn't earning much, hadn't sent many emails in a while, but it's like, hey, I can have this as an asset. We send out emails for other brands, for other projects we have. Like, let's slide that into this. I mean, it sounds exactly like what we did in July with the email newsletter.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, especially if it's like related to what you're doing. Technically, this page is not very related to any of my other projects. I would much prefer something that's like related that you could like cross pollinate,
Yeah.
and cross pollinate stuff. But yeah, but you buying that newsletter, yeah, and people don't understand. Yeah, buying it at a discount, it's kind of tough because like if there's a project and it's not producing revenue, like it's gonna take tons of sweat equity
Yeah.
from you, from me to like to grow these things. Like it's not gonna grow on its own.
Mhm.
Like you gotta spend a ton of money, ton of time, energy to try to like turn it into something cool. So yeah, that's why I think if you can find a deal like that at like what I would consider a discount. So.
It's great. Well, hey, good stuff. As always, exciting to hear about different side hustles. Give a lot of people a lot of different things to think about, especially as we go into 2025. This is the season when a lot of people are saying this is the year. This is the year
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do something in addition to my 9 to 5, or I'm gonna add another project on to build for the future. And so, just giving you
Heck
guys
yeah.
ideas, just sharing. Not saying all these ideas
Heck
are gonna
yeah.
work, folks, but some of them do. We share when they work, but we also share when they don't work or when they haven't worked yet. So
You got it. you gotta swing the bat, right? Like Spencer, I know we're about to move on, but Spencer, I guess, had a post recently, or he's talking about all his projects of something, and I was like, man, like if you don't swing the bat, like you can't ever hit the ball. You
Nope.
know what I mean? You can't ever make a hit. So like, yeah, you gotta take swings. So
That's what a lot of this is. I mean, that's the great thing about it. It's a side hustle thing. So I mean, for me, I run a marketing agency every day. That's my day job. That's my paycheck. That's what I do. This is all stuff on the side. If it works, like it did with the Amazon influencer, awesome. If it doesn't, it's still a bummer, but it's not going
yeah,
to, sting in the way of the way that, like a non-side hustle, a main gig would. So
sure.
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. So you probably know the importance of building internal links so your site can perform well in Google. Today I want to share how Link Whisper can help you add outbound internal links to your articles. As you draft your article in WordPress, Link Whisper scans your site, identifying the best internal link opportunities. It then recommends the perfect anchor text and link to add. With just a click, your content is updated with new internal links. No more expensive tools or tedious manual site searches. Link Whisper does the heavy lifting right inside the WordPress editor. Say goodbye to the hassle of internal linking. With Link Whisper, you can focus on what you do best, creating great content. Use the coupon code podcast today and get $15 off. Elevate your website's internal linking with Link Whisper now. Building smart internal links just got easier. Go to linkwhisper.com today and be sure to use coupon code podcast to get $15 off.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get into the weird niches here. This segment, Spencer and I were joking last week on the year-end podcast, like it's the one everybody wants to talk about, even though, it's always at the end of the podcast and was always something that was just kind of more to be amusing, but it's turned into certainly one of the favorite episodes or parts of the episode every week. My weird niche, I will go first. I appreciate this. A former podcast guest Mike with Niche Twins shared this one with me. It is fantasynamegenerators.com. Now, I'll admit I'm not really in the fantasy world, so I don't really know a lot about this, but I had a lot of fun playing around with it, and it's a very popular website. And so I've got it up on the screen in front of me. I will say it's pretty busy. There's a lot of options and there's a lot you can do, which definitely kind of overwhelmed me, but I also am not the target market. And so, fair play. I'll try to navigate through what it does. It is a random name generator in the fantasy realm. And so I just basically clicked one of the links on the homepage, if you're not watching, and it randomly generated a bunch of names for a segment of fantasy, basically. And so this is Catalan. Catalan, I don't know how to say this. One of those two. Catalonia is a small autonomous community in northeastern Spain, and they're very similar to Spanish names. And so basically there's all these. I'm not sure this is fantasy, to be honest with you. I think they might have gone a little bit outside their niche, which I'll talk about here in a second. But the idea is fantasy name generators. Let me try. Let's go to a random generator. God, this is very confusing. Here we go. This is why I say they might have strayed a bit. Not that it's affecting them, but if you go to fantasy and folklore, I mean, there are just so many different name generators here. Evil names, genie names, giant names. Let's go look at giant names. Here we go. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think any of these look like giant names? Tysus, Jerser.
Yeah, Groovar.
Yeah. Like those are good giant names, right?
It's a giant, man.
It's a giant name. I'm not going to poke around anymore. I want to take over to Ahrefs and show you what it looks like over there, because this is a super popular site. So it's a DR69. It ranks for over 300,000 keywords, and it gets an estimated organic traffic of 2.4 million. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, look at this. This is the last 2 years here. This graph, like it hasn't gone
It's
up
like
much.
steady, man.
It's steady, right?
It's just like trucking, though. Trucking, yeah.
Going back to the beginning of this podcast, like you would think Google hasn't launched one algorithm update in the last 2 years. If you look at this,
Exactly.
If you go over here to top pages, and this is kind of where I was poking around. Let's see. Come on. Well, it's taking its time, but if you come over here to top pages, if it goes, I guess it's not going to go. There we go. It's got almost 2,000 pages. So it's, it's just got they've gone the fantasy name generator, and they have city names here. Like, it's just, they've gone down the rabbit
Crazy.
hole.
Crazy.
Final thing here is, and I'll go back to the website. I was trying to figure out, like, how are they earning revenue?
Yeah, I saw that ad on the homepage, and I didn't dig any deeper other than like hopping on the homepage and just looking at it. But yeah, I saw that ad. Have you seen much more in
No,
that? Like
no. There's like a
revenue-wise?
video ad. Yeah, it looks like almost like a YouTube video ad. It's for YouTube,
Oh.
obviously, but it feels like that's a very ad choices. I don't know which ad network this is. It's not YouTube. I thought originally it was, just by what I was seeing. If you go over here to about, where was it? Contact and support, and then you go to help the site. The guy's basically like, hey, just if you want to help, just give me ideas. And if you want to help more, share it with your friends. And, it's just like, he doesn't really say, he doesn't try to make money on it, but it has this vibe that he's just trying to kind of do this for the fun of it. He does have a donate page. And so if you keep going here, you can donate. But he kind of tells you to donate to a charity, and he gives you all these different charities like donorchoose.org, justgive.org. He shares which charities he uses. He's into reforestation, and so he talks about that there, and that's supporting the homepage. So, it's pretty cool when you take a step back, because like a site that's getting this many visitors, if he's not monetizing enough. I almost wish he monetized more just so those charities would get more money. But in general, it does seem like he's fostering more of a community with this website than maybe a monetization strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard to know. Like maybe he cares, maybe he doesn't. Maybe how often do you want to reach out to the people on like from the websites that come up in this segment? Because I feel like while you're showing that, I'm like, oh, we should totally just like send them a message and be like, hey, do you want to produce more revenue? Like maybe we could help you do it. Like it may be that like some people don't know that other ad networks exist or have those ideas.
It's true.
I find that really interesting that people can try really hard to and know how to monetize and like try to get the traffic and not get it, and then other people can get like millions of monthly visitors, but not necessarily have the knowledge of like what to do or how to like monetize. It's almost like influencers and like TikTok. Not to get sidetracked, but a lot of those that have millions of views aren't as good at like monetizing. Like they don't really know business per se necessarily. So yeah, I don't know.
Or they're under monetized. I know people
exactly
like, I know this is kind of synonymous with YouTube influencers, where they just will monetize with YouTube ads and merch, right? It's like, these are like two of the lowest paying revenue generating things that you can do. But it's so many of them do it. It is when you interview them, when you talk to them, some of them are just like, I don't know the other ways to do it, And so to your point, like it feels like he's got an ad in the homepage. It's not like he doesn't know that ads exist. Maybe he just doesn't realize that he can put ads on all these things, and in between the name generator, before the name pops up, he could have an ad come up, or he could go as far or as light as he wanted. But I wonder if he's under monetized just because he doesn't kind of know all the ad monetization methodologies.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, people like
I'll
us,
reach out.
It's easy to forget. We're in this world, so we're always like, what's your RPM? How soon can I get on Mediavine Journey? Quickly, get that thing to 10,000 page views.
Sign up. Yeah, exactly. That's totally true, man. That's totally true. That's in our circle, right? That's what people are saying. Yeah, totally. That's a cool website, though.
It's tough talking about a really cool, weird niche when you have no knowledge of the weird niche, right? So...
yeah.
So at some point, I got to fill air every week on a weird niche. I can't be an expert in every weird niche we talk about. So I got to delve into some of these, even though I don't know much about it. It does seem like he's gone a little outside of just fantasy. But if you don't know fantasy, you don't really know if he has. But I think he has. That's my guess. So, all right, Brooks, I will be pulling up yours while you bring yours up and start talking about it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he might. Well, maybe he knows SEO then. If he's going way outside, maybe he was doing the SEO play, man.
That's what I mean. I sure felt that way.
Exactly.
Sure felt that way.
Yeah, maybe he does know. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly. All right, so this site is called Distance.to. Interesting. It's not a .com. I don't think you guys have done this one in the past, as far as I know.
I don't think so.
Distance.to, and interesting. So what am I trying to say? .com is called a TLD. No, it's
TLD.
called
Yep.
a
TLD.
TLD. Okay, yeah. I don't know. My brain was freezing. Yeah, dot two. I don't even know what country that is with, but pretty cool play on words there. Distance.to, but is getting apparently a ton of traffic. And what this does, I played around with it for a few minutes. Pretty simple, yet I think it's has crazy amounts of data in the site, which is why it's getting so much traffic, because it's not necessarily pages. If you there's not places to click around and read articles per se, right? So it's not like that last site, but you can literally click start and go to and you're doing it right now. I was playing on my screen and I forgot that I wasn't the one up on the up on yours. So you just went from the northeast to Mexico, and it tells you how long the distance is. So it's it gives you the straight line, but it also gives you I guess the driving path or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, man. You just discovered the entire website. As
I'm
far as I
just
know,
I was just trying to be
that's what it
interactive here
does.
while you were talking. I did New York City to Mexico City.
Yeah.
And at first I did Buenos Aires, but it didn't want to give me a driving route. I think you can drive, by the way, from New York City to Buenos Aires, but maybe it didn't find a connecting route that was perfect. But yeah, look, I think it's cool. Like you said, it's got a distance, which is the straight line distance. I'm not sure that's the
Mm-hmm.
flying distance or just as the crow flies kind of terminology. But then the driving route is a lot longer. It's 2,600 plus miles.
And that's the website. As far as I know, it doesn't do other things than that. Maybe it does. Maybe it does do other things than that, but it also appears to get a lot of traffic.
Oh yeah, I brought that up. Let me switch over here. Share this tab instead. Okay, I got it up on screen.
And in my tool, in my tool is showing quite dramatic growth over the time. So yours isn't as steep of a line, but it is showing growth over time. DR61 is kind of what I saw. Yeah, so it's um, so what is your tool showing the traffic as?
So mine's showing some really good growth in 2022 and 2023. And then into mid 2024, and then that's when it kind of stagnated. But traffic-wise, over 250,000 organic page views a month is what it's reporting.
Interesting.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot for a one-page site, basically.
Uh-huh.
Although, to be fair, it does generate a new URL every single time you do a search query. So I wonder if those are being indexed and if those are, getting search traffic on their own. Oh, yeah, look at this. Okay, let me go back. Look at this in Ahrefs. I go to total pages. It's got over 43,000 pages that Ahrefs has found. And so it looks like it's indexing. Here we go. Los Angeles, San Francisco, and it ranks for how far is LA from San Francisco by car. It's got the #1 featured snippet position for that. So that's interesting. It's only a one-page site in looks, but it appears
Exactly.
like all these other pages are being indexed.
Wait, do you think that, so did they produce all of those pages from the start, or is it producing pages as you is it live producing pages as you choose a connector? Is it then creating a URL and saving that or something? Or do you think they just already created, well, I guess they already had to have all the data. So I guess they've already created all of that.
So
those pages?
it's interesting because I don't know, but here's one of the things I will share is what I just booted up on screen is it's the URL distance.to/India/USA. Okay. And it just basically is showing the same search query that we went through with New York to Mexico City, but the URL string is different, right? It's almost folder and subfoldering versus when we did the search, and let me show you this here. I guess it is the same query. Never mind. I thought it was a different URL string. Here's New York City to Mexico City. So I thought maybe they had an internal database. They must still have an internal database that is somehow surfacing itself because it's got to get crawled, and it's got to get crawled and ranked for this. It is interesting. Oh, here we go. Look at this. Okay. Look in the upper right here, Brooks. Kind of figuring this out on the fly. So it's got a similar distance, and it says Mexico City is just as far away from New York City as Caracas is Mexico City is from, and then it goes through all these other ones, Phoenix and Pueblo and Valencia. And you can click here and it's got all these pre-built URLs. So this is like an
I
internal
gotcha.
linking mastermind here.
Yeah. So if you click on one of those, it just pops up that route?
So here's New York City to Phoenix, and yep, there it is.
Yep.
New York City to Phoenix.
Yep.
It is a very similar distance, and it's already pre-built. And then my guess is they're probably going to maybe do the same thing here, although I don't see it. It's got all this information in the sidebar that's super interesting. Yep, there it is. Similar routes again.
Crazy. Yeah. So I wonder if there's anything like that doesn't exist. Like if you choose something on their site that like doesn't exist, I don't know, like doesn't exist, like some small random place to small random place. Does it have that in their index or, I don't know the answer there.
I mean, it looks like it's pulling, like you said, like their database. I'd be so curious to see where they're getting their data from, like, cause they have a ton of map data here. Feels like they have I'm trying to think of a tiny town. Here's a town in my area. There it is. I mean, that's a pretty tiny town right there.
Oh, it's using mapping coordinates. So like I just put one in the middle of the water. I don't know. I just clicked 2 random places and, I mean, it maps it and it gives you the distance, but I'm like, would that be in Google's index? I don't know. I mean, that'd be like infinite points of,
that's what I mean.
like,
It's got
data,
longitude
right?
and latitude data. It's got local time data. I mean, it's got a lot of information here. It really does. It's got the nearest flight, nearest airports to each place, and it's got the airport code. It's also got a separate URL for that airport. I mean, it's got a lot of data that it's pulling from, and it's pretty cool to play with. I got to say, you and I have been talking about this one for a little bit longer than normal, and it's because this is such a cool site in terms of the data that it has.
Yeah.
Here you go.
I just realized
it says how the distance is calculated, and it's some formula. I don't know if you can see it here in the bottom right of my screen for those of you watching. I just kind of highlighted it at, but man, this would be a fun site to spend much more than 5 or 10 minutes on.
Yeah, I just realized that as we were going through this, there's probably some programmatic SEO out there that was laughing at everything I was saying
exactly.
and all the questions I had. Sorry, you expert. Yeah.
You got to get used to when you co-host these suckers, like just leave all your preconceived notions about how smart you are at the door, because no matter how smart you are, there's somebody listening who's like, dude, come on.
Yeah. We're here to ask questions, man. Hey, we're just here to ask questions, right? We're exploring.
Yeah, no ego, I guess. Well, I probably still have one, but this has sure helped put it in check. I'll tell you, co-hosting. Anyways, well, that hour flew by, especially the last 10 minutes. That's going to go down as one of my favorite weird niches. That was really good. I feel like we could have spent a half an hour on that and still not have dove all the way into it. Monetization, I saw a couple ads, but it doesn't look like much more than that. But super cool site.
With you.
Okay. Hey, 2025, we're off to the races. We're out of the gates. First one in 2025. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll be here for all your news every week throughout the rest of this year. All the best to you in 2025. We wish you the best, and we wish you a ton of success as you go about your projects, whether they're side projects or your main gig. Stay with us here because we'll be here all year talking about it. Brooks, until we talk again, thanks for coming by.
Here's to a great year. Thanks.
Hey there, thanks so much for listening to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Did you know that Jared and I are members of a private group called the Niche Pursuits Community? And today I want to share with you how you can join for just $1. The Niche Pursuits Community is a private members area for niche online publishers to mastermind and grow their businesses together. We hold weekly calls live with experts where you can ask questions. These experts share tips on Amazon Influencer, Google Discover, building email newsletters, getting traffic from Facebook, and other strategies to grow your online business. You'll also be assigned a mastermind group of 4 or 5 other people in a similar stage in business as you. Dive deep into your business issues and get your problems solved. If you use coupon code PODCAST at checkout, you'll get your first month for just $1. Go ahead and give it a try. Come join me, Jared, and lots of other digital entrepreneurs inside my private group at community.nichepursuits.com. And be sure to use coupon code PODCAST. I'll see you on the inside.